Hello, everybody, and welcome to the CoLab, SpacetoCo's free monthly online sessions designed to assist those working in community venues to learn, upskill, and be inspired to do their work more effectively and efficiently. We hope you find these sessions useful for the important work you do in our local communities. For those of you who are watching this recording after this live event, hello, and we hope you get valuable knowledge from this session. My name is Carmela, and I organize these monthly learning series. And just a little bit about SpacetoCo before we move on. Our mission in SpacetoCo is to help community venues be a thriving hub in their communities. We do so by providing opportunities to be able to grow bookings, increase community engagement, as well as support. We also create and provide free resources for those working in community venues. SpacetoCo is a two-sided marketplace where you can list your spaces where guests can find and book them online. It is also an efficient booking system tool where you can reduce your admin by 80%. We work with a number of local governments as well as community centers across Australia and New Zealand. And so without further ado, today's session is the fundamentals of activating places and spaces. Activating spaces is about more than just opening the doors. It's about creating places that invite people in, encourage connection, and serve in the community's needs. In this practical session, you'll explore the core principles that make activation successful, from designing great customer journeys to setting the right pricing and making your space irresistible to potential users. You'll walk away with practical ideas for improving how spaces are shared, what to look for when designing a successful customer journey, tips for setting community venue pricing with confidence, and easy wins to market your space and grow engagement. And it is my absolute pleasure to introduce our speaker for today, who is Francine, which a number of our SpacetoCo hosts have already met. Francine Vandenberg has joined SpacetoCo team in 2019 and has since worked with hundreds of local government and community organizations across Australia and New Zealand to promote efficient use of shared spaces, fostering community engagement and reducing the admin tax so often associated with activating spaces. With a background in marketing and a passion for helping people, Francine loves working with different organizations and supporting them in improving internal workflows that ultimately lead to better customer journeys and greater utilizations of spaces. So without further ado, I will pop Francine onto the stage.
Thanks, Carmela. And just a big hello from me too. It was so lovely to see so many people in the chat that I've actually had the pleasure of working with. So today, as Carmela gave me a very, very nice intro, really sort of, if I think too hard about it, I'll probably have that go to my head. So as you all know, I'm Francine, so I'm the onboarding team manager here at SpacetoCo. So we've got a team of 5 now who really take care of getting our customers set up on SpacetoCo. And over the last couple of years, one of the big things that goes quite hand in hand in what we do is helping our customers and people who are coming to us activate their places and spaces, which is more than just implementing SpacetoCo. There's more to it. And so I'm hoping to share some of those insights with you today. Activating spaces is quite the hot topic, quite the buzzword, if you will. I've seen it around a lot, particularly in the community center sector, around how do we get more people into our places? How do we get greater utilization? It's a big part of what you do, and rightly so, because people coming together in spaces drive that community building within a neighborhood. There's certainly lots of ways and you can activate a space, from running community programs, which I know there's been a few sessions on, and I know also there's a bunch of you who absolutely nailed to doing that, to advertising things online. But ultimately, what are we trying to achieve with activating a space? We're trying to get to a point where you've got greater utilization of those facilities that you've got, right? Because greater utilization by people can drive the creation of communities and that sense of belonging within a neighborhood. So that's what we're going to be diving into. We're going to be diving into some pivotal aspects to activating spaces, which can quite literally, not to make it seem harsh, but it can make or break whether or not people use your space, because that's what we'll be looking into. And if it makes it hard for people to use your space, it tends to reduce that greater utilization. So without further ado, let's journey together through my version of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. You're going to be my Arthur Dent. I'm going to be your Ford Prefect. And if you don't understand that reference, please at least go watch the movie. If not, read the book, because I highly recommend it. All right, so there's 4 key aspects that we're going to be looking together today. The first, and probably the most intimidating, is simplifying fees. The second is going to be making your space information clear and accessible to your customers. We're going to be looking at how you can cultivate an online presence and the impact this has for people finding your space. And then ultimately being able to give a self-serve model or an option to your customers. And all of these 4 things, they have one thing in common, and that is the customer journey, because all 4 of these things impact that customer journey. And a customer journey, a most successful customer journey, I'm kind of spoiling it, but you'll see it as the presentation goes on. If you reduce those barriers to entry for your customers and you're making that customer journey really smooth, you're making it easy for people to want to book your space, to let other people know about booking your space, and ultimately drive that utilization within your community centers. All right, because think back to a time when you've maybe had to look up information. So you're going to make a big purchase. Maybe you were looking up whether or not to buy an Apple or a Samsung phone, or you're planning your next holiday, or you're looking at hiring a space. It doesn't have to be any of these, or maybe you've decided to finally invest in an electric vehicle, and you start this research process. If you're struggling to find the information, if you're struggling to find how much it'll cost, if you can't find it online, if you can't make budget things, if that customer journey is really hard, chances are you're probably going to give up. That's what your customers are probably experiencing as well. So if it's hard for them to be able to find your space and look at all these 4 things, then they're probably going to drop off. The inverse is also true, right? Because if you've had a great experience finding the information you need, being able to budget, and have this wonderful customer journey, you've been able to make that decision, that purchase, be it a new phone, a new car, a holiday, whatever it ends up being. So with that principle in mind, that's what we want to apply to your spaces. How can we improve that customer journey, which will ultimately be able to drive that greater utilization within the space? So let's dive in. I'm going to start with probably the most intimidating side of things, which is your fees and charges. This picture, it was quite the meme, in particularly when I was a little bit younger. I found that with this whole 6-7 craze, I am not as hip with the kids as I used to be, but this was quite a big meme, and this really picture represents to me how it sometimes feels, and your customers probably feel when they look at complex fees and charges. Because when fees and charges are complex and they look up, even if they can find the rates, if they can't make sense of them, then it becomes hard for people to budget. It becomes hard for people to plan. We've got quite a few people here from councils. You probably have your own purchase policies around having to find quotes and then get approval to buy it. And if you can't find a quote or know how much it's going to cost, it's hard for you to budget, which means you're probably going to disregard that as an option to go down to. So same thing here. So if it's hard to find your fees or complex to understand, it just reduces that customer feeling like they can book with you. Or even further to that, hidden fees and charges, right? Nothing is worse than going through that checkout process. I don't know if I recently purchased tickets through Ticket Tech, who's become better, but you still get to the end and then all of a sudden you're slapped with a booking fee and a credit card surcharge, which has become quite the thing to add to booking. And that's not a great experience for your customers either, because all of a sudden you've budgeted going, okay, great, it's going to cost me $100 to hire this space, but oh no, now I have to add this surcharge and this admin fee. And that experience isn't really great. And again, then you'll see that drop off because it's not what the customer budgeted for. For your side, so from a staff perspective of maybe managing that community center or managing your council facilities, when fees are complex, you run that risk of overcharging or undercharging. Overcharging is really poor for your customer. Undercharging is really poor for you because then you're not getting that revenue coming through. And that all stems from, I just don't know how to charge for my customers. And like, as I said before, no sane person likes feeling like this person. No one really likes math. So what we want to be moving towards is an idea of simple fees and charges. We want to feel like Michael Scott here. We want to feel that it's really easy to understand. When you come to your fees and charges, you go, great, it's super clear about what I can expect to be charged as a customer. For you as maybe a staff member of a community centre, knowing that if a customer reaches out to say, hey, I want to hire your space, you can trust that the quote you're giving them is the right quote. And it's also not taking an obscene amount of admin time to do the mini calculations to give them a quote. Because if everyone knows what's being charged, we're winning, right? So what makes fees and charges simple? So we're not going to dive into all the ins and outs, but these are some principles that you can keep in mind. Hourly pricing maximizes value. This can seem quite counterintuitive. I know there's a few instances where community centres prefer to go down the half-day and full-day rate, which from a revenue for the community centre kind of makes sense because you're like, great, I'm at least getting a half-day's fee coming in for someone booking. But think about the customer journey. If they're forced to book a half-day or a full day to maybe use your space for an hour, not only does it become really expensive for your customer, but you're also not getting that greater utilization, right? Because the customer's paying for the day, and so you can't really put anyone else in there because they've booked out for the whole day. Whereas when you go to an hourly pricing model, the customer gets charged for their use. You're opening up your space to greater turnaround of customers, more people moving through your space, which is driving that ultimate goal, right? Bringing that community together, increasing that greater utilization within the space. So it's an hourly pricing unlocks so much more beyond the fact that it's just a really nice, clean way to do calculations to know how much you're going to be charged. Further to that, if you're going to go down the route of creating maybe different tiers, particularly when you're looking at, say, private hire or casual hire versus maybe some of your regulars that you want to give a bit of a discount for, having super clear definitions for when a certain rate applies also makes it easy. So you might go down the route of having a function rate or a weekend surcharge, which is fantastic. But having a clear definition of when it applies, maybe the hours. So you could say, well, a function rate would apply any day after 5 p.m. on a Friday through to midnight on a Sunday, so that when you or the customers trying to work out how much they're being charged, it's really easy to go, great, I have to add this amount on top of what I'm calculating. Consistency helps with that too, so that it's a really nice, and I'll show you an example in a minute around how that consistency across tiers can apply. So if you're going to have a function rate, having the same discount level across your tiers if you've got multiple rates that you're charging, and trying to avoid exceptions. So exceptions like maybe a lot of custom tiers for your regular hirers, which I know can be tricky, particularly when you've had customers with you for quite a while, or cases where you can say, oh, well, a function rate applies on Friday night, Saturday, except for the hours between 2 and 4 p.m. Or public holidays and not public holidays, or staffed hours versus not staffed hours. The more exceptions and the more granular rules you have, again, then you're adding complexity. So yes, clear definitions, but try to keep it simple. Have maybe one or two so that it's both easy for you and for the customer to use. I want to show you an example. This is a town hall. This is actual fees and charges from someone. And I don't know about you, we're looking at this. There's 15 different charges for one space. And on the surface, you go, great, this is nice and easy. We've got some great tiers down here and we've got our rates, but hold up a minute. It is more expensive for a local community member to hire it for a meeting than for a private business. That seems a bit odd, doesn't it? Now you got that exception, which is also not great for the local community, which is generally meant to be more affordable, right? Because you're wanting to get your local community in there. Then, on top of that, you've got this one-day hire period. So, coming back to the idea of having an hourly principle, a customer is going to pay $42 if we're going to be a regular hire, or let's say it's this $137 for a meeting, which is, I don't know about you, 2-hour meetings are my limit. I don't know about anyone who's having a full day meeting, unless you're maybe doing a training workshop. So $137 is a lot to be charging for a meeting within that town hall. So that's where we're looking at, okay, so not only is it a little bit complex because the customer now has to work out, okay, am I going to maybe tell a little bit of a story so that I can get this cheaper rate because, oh, great, maybe I'm having a rehearsal and not technically a meeting, or I'm going to just apply as a commercial even though I'm a community. that level of complexity. So let's have a look of when it's simplified. That's that same one, nice and simple. Look at that. We've dropped down to half the rates. And we've got this beautiful, consistent drop down from tiers. You got 25% off for private if they're hiring for regular or casual. No more rehearsals, no more meetings. Don't have to worry about what type of booking it is. It's just regular or casual. And then we've got a bit of a surcharge on a Saturday, which is fair enough. Weekends are always good because there's always a little bit of extra risk with weekends. And look at that, 25% off for anyone who's not for profit or government, and then 50% off for community. How easy is that? So if someone comes to you and says, hey, I want to hire this for my community group's end of year function, it's $62 with 50% discount, $31. Nice and easy. So an outcome of changing your fees and charges to something like that, it becomes easier for both your staff and your customers to understand. Less to maintain because if someone qualifies as a not-for-profit, they automatically get 25% off no matter what they need. So whether they're hiring us on a Saturday for a function versus a regular hire versus a casual with these set of fees, they're getting 25% off. The customers are also paying for what they're using. So we've moved away from a day rate to an hourly. So when someone is hiring and they're doing it for a meeting and they only want it for an hour, someone from the community is benefiting from only having to pay $31 versus that $137 for the full day. Now, if someone's booking it for a meeting, you can probably add 2 or 3 other groups in there for the day, and you're bringing in that greater utilization of the space because you're making it possible for people to come into the space. So that's how fees and charges help with that customer journey and drive that greater utilization. The second thing that we're going to be looking at is making your space information accessible. And what I mean by this is if you're doing research, you want customers to find your information. So if they're looking up and trying to see what's in their local area in terms of event spaces or places that they can run their community groups, you want to make it possible for them to find all the necessary information. It shouldn't be a challenge. When it becomes a challenge for a customer, they stop trying. It's just natural psychology. If it becomes too hard, you kind of stop or you start looking at alternative options, which means you're not actually benefiting from someone who's maybe living down the road and could be walking into your community center. The alternatives, so they can either drop out of the buy cycle, so not continue with the customer journey trying to book with you, or you're going to get a relentless amount of phone calls and emails from your customers going, hey, how many tables and chairs do you have in the hall? And is it available on Saturday between 10 and 1 p.m.? And can I bring a pet unicorn? Am I allowed to have a jumping castle? And you're just answering question after question. And look, if your inbox is anything like mine, by like the 10th email, you're probably over it. So if you can make your information accessible, it's easier for customers to book. You're reducing that admin time for your staff of having to answer very repetitive questions. And it's easier for them to make a decision to book with you because now they can compare, right? So if they look up your community center versus maybe another event space, and they can compare and contrast on what amenities they've got access to, when it's available, how much it costs, and they can make a decision right there and then. And this idea of space information being really accessible ties very closely in with things being online. Because think of it, the power of Google it. How many of us in our day-to-day lives will just say Google it? And Google it doesn't even necessarily refer to just using Google. It could be any search engine or just this idea of looking up information. It's so synonymous to Googling it and going online and finding it. We're probably within the next couple of years going to see a change to that and seeing AI with the growth of AI doing research on behalf of people. But for the moment, Google it is still such a cornerstone to how we operate in our day-to-day lives. But so does for your customers. If you're using Google it, so is your customers. And as we move online and we just have this increasing presence in this online sphere, on the web, there's also an expectation for customers that all necessary information can and should be found online. And typically when it's not, they kind of just remove you or your community center as an option. So if they can't find it, then they'll probably go, okay, great, I either can't hire it, or I now need to remember in my busy schedule between the hours of 9 and 5 to call you, which becomes hard. After business hour bookings are very, very common. most people are sitting maybe on the couch, on their mobile device, ticking away at 9 p.m. at night going, I need to book a space for Timmy's 7th birthday, which I forgot about, and it's next week. So what am I going to do at 9 o'clock at night? I'm going to Google it, and I'm going to see what's available in my local area. If your community center, your council facilities, or your event space does not have a level of online presence, you're losing out on a whole market looking outside of ours. I had a very interesting experience quite recently with my own local government area where I needed to book a facility. And I knew about this facility because it's down the road from me and I saw it being built. Every day as I walked my dog along this footpath, I was seeing this construction of this building go up. And so I knew it was a brand new facility. I also knew it was council run because the council logo was slapped all over it. So one day when I decided I needed a function space in my local area for an event that I was running, I figured, hey, let's have a look at how much this space is going to cost and what amenities is accessible and what does it look like inside, because I've only seen it from the outside. Do you think I could find it? I couldn't find it anywhere. And I looked really hard. I went through all of the council website. I tried to even do a preliminary online booking form, which was like 15 pages, and I ended up giving up with because it was too long. And I couldn't find the facility I knew existed because I walked past it. So I dropped out of the biocycle. I started looking somewhere else because I couldn't find the information I needed at a time that I could, because I was doing it after hours in my spare time. It was a private event that I was running. If I wanted to, I could call the council. Absolutely, that's possible. But between the hours of 9 to 5, which is their business hours, I'm also working. So I have to mentally remember to call them at a time that I'm free and I'm not bogged down in my own work life. And that becomes a challenge. So when it's not online, you're losing out on that market that probably would have found your space if it had been online. So an online presence, on the one hand, yes, is a website. So being able to give more detail about your space. So thinking back to that accessible space information, even if it's just really basic. So just, hey, it's a hall that's 10 meters by 20 meters, and we've got a stage and 10 tables and 15 chairs that you're welcome to come use. And maybe advertising your rates. And if you really wanted to take a next step, you could even offer on a level of online bookings, which we'll get to in a minute. But an online presence can also tie into use of social media. I think there's been a few collabs on that already, but social media, again, can be quite intimidating, and it does take a lot of work amongst everything else. But social media also unlocks the ability to engage with potential customers. Getting that feedback loop, getting people excited about maybe new programs that you're running, new facilities that you've added, upgrades to your spaces and things, but also giving inspiration for how your spaces can be used. People are very visual learners. There's a good old saying, say, picture's worth 1,000 words, and it really is. People love to see how your space could be used, and social media gives you that opportunity to share some photos about an event that you ran, or a program, or a really cool way someone set up your space for an event, and that gets people thinking of, oh great, this community center with this hall, I could absolutely do something similar, or maybe I can put my buffet table on this wall and have like little cocktail tables over here, and it gets people thinking. So an online presence is both the ability to give people the chance to find your information, take online bookings if you wanted to take it to a little bit more advanced step, but also give that level of inspiration, guidance of, great, this is a fantastic way that you can use my space. So it can be intimidating, but it is definitely, particularly if you're unlocking that after hours business market, an online presence is an absolute must in today's day and age. An online presence, but if you wanted to take it to the next level, is offering a level of self-service. So thinking back, if we keep going with this idea of a mum sitting on a couch at 9 o'clock at night trying to book a birthday venue for her son's 15th birthday, being able to do that right then and there, so make an online booking request, submit it, frees up your staff time because you're not having to answer a bunch of emails going back and forth, from maybe a mum sending an email going, hey, I'd like to book this for November 23rd from 11 to 1 p.m. And you got to go check the calendar. Whereas if it's all online, that person can make that booking right then and there and submit it to you. It gives you the ability to focus more on placemaking. So those wonderful community programs that you're running, engaging with the people coming into your space, but it also empowers the customer, because the customer can now put in their booking request, manage it, cancel it, add to it, get reminders about it, all without having to add further admin tax to you. This, on a very simple level, can look like having an online form on your website that just saves needing to write an email. Maybe you're just submitting it in. And if you really want to, I'm going to plug our own software here. There's some really great software out there, and SpacetoCo is one of them that offers tools and resources that you can add your space, get an online presence through some marketing that our marketplace has, and be able to use the tools to manage it. So it's a wonderful tool for both your customers and yourselves. Now, to end today's presentation, I want to have a look at, give you an example of someone who really focused on the customer journey and saw the outcome of doing that. And I'm going to use City of Coburn, or Planet Coburn, given that this is a space-themed presentation, as an example. Back when we started working with the City of Coburn, they had a new facility that was built, and this sort of sparked an overhaul on thinking about how bookings are managed and that customer journey. Because what they were experiencing was a very admin-heavy way to manage their bookings, so credit notes and menu bonds and phone calls and emails and dealing with all the customer demands. And they kind of had two choices. They can either keep throwing more staff resources at it, which is expensive, and it always takes a little bit of time to train more people and get more people set up, or reinvent how they're currently doing their customer journey. Their staff were completing long paper forms and answering tons of emails, and that's when they decided to come to us. So we started working with the City of Coburn. We set up all of their spaces over a couple of weeks. They did break a couple of records with the sheer volume of spaces and hires that were set up. But after about a year of working with us, they saw a 62% reduction in customer calls 1 year after implementing SpacetoCo. 62%. That's insane. That's like more than half of your day that you'd be spending on phone calls are just gone. They had a 25% growth in bookings across that year. So not only did they experience a 62% reduction in admin, but they also had greater utilization of spaces, all from improving that customer journey. And remembering back, we did a fees and charges. We updated how their fees were working, make it really simple. Gave them an online presence, which not only made the space information really accessible because it was online, everyone could see everything they needed and make a decision right then and there about whether or not they were booking with City of Coburn, but it was also a self-serve model because customers, as we said, are sometimes looking outside of business hours. So now they don't have to remember to call between the hours of 9 and 5. They can sit on the couch with a glass of wine, making a bunch of bookings and canceling them if they so want to, or editing them if they so want to, because you're empowering that customer. This meant that the staff at the City of Coburn didn't have to chase any debt anymore. I remember very specifically, we had a few customers that were quite behind with paying their invoices, and in that year, caught up very quickly with implementing something like SpacetoCo, where they could manage their payments and invoices, and staff were able to focus on more meaningful projects. And this is when you focus on the customer journey, that's that outcome. It's you're freeing up your time to be able to focus on activating your spaces, running those community programs, and ultimately grow that utilization in your community center. So an out of this world customer journey, coming back to hitchhikers, is reducing those barriers for customers to find and book your spaces. So making it simple for them to know how much they're going to be charged. They understand what's going to be included in their space hire because you've made it accessible for them to see what information they have access to, what amenities are in your space. You're doing that online because that's where your customers are looking. So whether they're Googling it, going to Facebook, going to Instagram, you're doing that online. And maybe you've gone it a step further and given them a self-serve model where they can submit an online booking to make that even easier without having to answer emails and phone calls to get that booking across the line. So a better customer journey leads to greater space activation and bookings growth, not only because you're making it easier for customers to book, but you're freeing up your time to then focus on running things like your community programs, on marketing your spaces, or maybe adding some amenities and things, or sprucing up your community facilities. And as I said, the right system can also reduce your staff time. I know there's a few people on the call considering us, and this is all something that we do as part of what we do at SpacetoCo. So just a little plug for us as well. We're a little ahead of schedule, which might be a good thing if anyone who wants to watch the Melbourne Cup. But is there any questions from anyone? Anything you'd like me to dive into more detail?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Francine. That was such a, first of all, visually beautiful presentation.
Thank you.
And also just like, yeah, really clear, really simple, and really eloquent, like the way you've just broken down all the sections of how to allow the booking journey for customers and potential customers can just be simplified. So while people are probably popping in their questions on the chat, I just had a few notes that I really took away from that, and also a few questions that have come up. I really enjoyed what you said about how a better customer journey leads to greater space activation and bookings growth, and the fact that empowering the customer increases venue engagement growth and potential revenue. And yeah, and then I think the whole notion of like when we put ourselves in our potential customer shoes and what is their initial impression of our venues plays such a big part in how we set
Mhm.
up the customer journey for them. And so I really, that's like one of the few things that I've written on my notes, but I just wanted to share it. Um, but one question that I had was in your experience with working with different community venues or councils or whatever, what have you noticed are barriers that they've often oh wait, what are barriers you've often seen that venues put on themselves that hindered them from fully activating their spaces and places?
So you're talking about internally. So what do you
Well, whatever, like, because you've worked with so many community venues,
mhm.
just from observing all of them, or just like what are common barriers that you've seen people, yeah, whether that's internal from maybe they're too hesitant to have an online presence, whether it relates to the presentation that you've said, or external things that people have maybe not considered as well.
Mm. Sometimes it's a level of fear of the unknown. So it can be quite intimidating. Let's use the fees and charges as an example to go through that process and kind of think fresh about it, particularly when you've been doing things for quite a while and you've been maybe working in this community center and you're like, well, I'm pretty attached to this potentially, or maybe worried about changing them. That can sometimes be a blocker to be able to improve it. So there's a level of open-mindedness that comes with rethinking about how you do that customer journey. And there's sometimes a little bit of hard work that goes into it too. Sometimes people expect to see instant results, but as we saw with Coben, that outcome took about 12 months, but they saw the outcome. So it wasn't just overnight within a week that you're going to get 100% utilization of your spaces. But over that 12-month period, you're seeing growth in your bookings, you're seeing reduction in staff time. But I definitely say being a little bit more open-minded and kind of embracing the change and knowing that if you use us as SpacetoCo, that we're always going to be here to hold your hands and give you that advice and guide you on that journey. That would probably be the first. And then the second is sometimes, what will my customer think? And this tends to tie in really closely with your regular hirers in particular on, oh no, but what if we change it and the regular hirer doesn't like it? Very rarely have I seen this. Most of the time, people really like being able to see and have their own accounts or be able to manage their bookings online. And sure, you might got some people you need to give a little bit of education to, but um, sometimes that putting in those hard yards are going to give you some really great outcomes at the other end.
Oh, I've muted myself, but I was like, yeah, nice. Um, we have a few questions. First of all, Connie has asked, wait, where did I popped it in the question and answer. Is there a SpacetoCo report we can run on their side to see how many people have gone partway through the booking process without completing it?
That's a fantastic question.
Mm.
At this point, not yet, but I also know that the developers are hard at work on some pretty awesome stuff that's going to be coming in 2026. So we hope to be having some data points like that in the future. So not currently, That being said, if you do have a Google Analytics account, you can add your own tracking code to the dashboard, and you'll get a little bit more data around how people are finding your space, how many click-throughs from like Google, for example. So if you don't have that, that's definitely worth looking into as a first step towards getting data like that.
Nice. We have Donna who's had inquiries with regards to setting up fees and charges. Do you have any tips when setting fees for different spaces? And she's also noted here, our fear on hourly rates is spaces being underutilized at certain hours. For example, bookings made at 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. makes it
Mhm.
hard for someone else to want to book the same room that day.
That's a very common fear that people get is what if someone books smack dab in the middle of the day? Which happens, right? It does happen. So there's a few different things. The first is have a look at when you're maybe trying to activate the time. So if it's in the afternoons and evenings, you could be looking at things like maybe a reduction in fees on those days. If it's particularly popular on, say, weekends, you could always look at maybe putting a surcharge on there and getting that extra little bit of revenue coming in through the space. So that's the first. Have a look at your market. So have a look at the area that you're in, similar type of spaces, to get a bit of a benchmark on what's the current price people are willing to pay. And then, yes, I completely share your fear. And what if people book a 3-hour booking in the middle of the day, and all of a sudden it's a little weird to you either have to come in at like 8 a.m. or I think that outside the other 2 p.m. side, you should be okay, depending on when you're making it available for people to book. But consider that maybe opening up your space to be available up until midnight. So you're starting to get the afternoons and evenings, potentially over Fridays and Saturdays for those weekend hire, those event bookings. So start by having a look at your market. In that middle of the day, you there are tools that you can do. So you can do you have to book from 10 a.m. instead. You can have a conversation with the customer, and then looking at maybe discounts for those times that you want to activate and get people into those spaces. And maybe that's first thing in the morning. Maybe that's later in the afternoon. I hope that answers your question.
I keep muting myself and I keep forgetting to put myself on mute. Thank you so much. I think we have okay, Connie has another question, which is awesome. Hold on. She says, me again, sorry. Is there an option for us to have different minimum booking slots throughout the day? For example, 1 hour minimum during the day, two minimum on evenings and weekends?
I'm assuming this is if you're using SpacetoCo.
You're using space. Yes, this is Connie. Yes.
Yeah. I had the pleasure of meeting Connie, I think, when I was in New Zealand a little while ago. So within SpacetoCo, you'll probably add a level of complexity to that. So without going down the route of having multiple versions of your space, not currently, no. You can add it to your space rules. My question will probably be, why do you want to do a 2-hour minimum on, say, evenings or weekends, and whether it's to do with you want to increase revenue, in which case a surcharge will probably give you the same effect. So you could add a surcharge for weekends and evenings to get the revenue in, even if the customer's only using it for an hour. If it's to do with staffed hours and things, then you're going into the realm of there's different sets of rules for hiring in the evenings and weekends versus during the week. And then we'll probably explore having two versions of your space to help with that. So it kind of stems down to what's your bigger goal here and what you're hoping to achieve. But in short, it is possible. And then, yeah, happy to have a conversation outside of the webinar to see how we can help you.
Yeah, no, that'd be awesome. Yeah, as per not just towards Connie, but any other SpacetoCo customers that are on this call, like if you guys ever need help to explore a little bit more about SpacetoCo and how to really, really take advantage of all the features, or just need a refresher on a few things, please reach out to any of the customer support team or anybody in SpacetoCo, and we'll be happy to connect you with someone who can help. I did have one question. How do you see community engagement grow when the customer journey gets simplified? Can you share what are some of your favorite examples you've seen this happen in a few different community venues you've worked in?
That's a really good question. You're making me think now because I do see them. It's the having to make a mental note of them. Often what I see is the excitement. It's the, oh, I don't have to like wait until 8 a.m. to call contact the community center to do what I need it to do.
Mm,
The other thing I've often seen is people tell like their friends, so that they might be in a community program that's maybe a regular hire within your space, find out how to book, then tell their friends. Kids' birthday parties always have this effect because what you end up having with the kids at birthday parties, you got all the mums there too, all the parents are like supervising their kids, and then they start talking about how did you find booking this space, and
yeah.
now you've got a whole market of kids' birthday parties that are just cycling through your space because it's that referral basis. I think that's pretty cool because then it becomes a very organic way to market your space, and
Mm,
people tend to trust referrals more than having to do listening to. So if you market your space, they're probably more likely to listen to their friend who had hired your space than to the ad that you're running. Not the ad's not great, it's just psychologically they tend to trust their friend more. uh, and so that's pretty cool. The other great thing that I've seen, which is maybe not quite to answer your question, but we've got a few community groups on like SpacetoCo who hire across multiple councils. Who,
mm,
when we sometimes close a new community centre or a new council who join us, are verbally excited about another person that they don't have to go through to manage their invoicing and their payments. Like there's a World Taekwondo Carers SA in South Australia is very popular. They do hire across multiple council areas and are always very excited when it's one less um, email to send and it's all just online. So that's pretty cool too.
yeah, you're so correct. Like ever since I became a mom and having to look through spaces and seeing how easy or hard it is to book those venues, like initially you're like, wow, I love this space, it's so gorgeous. And then you either just get put off because or you don't end up booking it because of how hard it is to book it. And so that's so correct. And I 100% agree with you with the organic, I guess, like with the referrals, for those people who might be a little bit who find doing, let's say, like social media and marketing and all that stuff a bit daunting. Yeah, like referrals are 100% like such a great way. And just as someone who is not just like a person who works for SpaceCo, but a hirer as well, I go by a lot of referrals too, and so
Mm.
that's so awesome to hear. Just the joy as well that
Yeah.
you hear and see from different customers is the number one thing that is your favorite part about it all. And so yeah.
Um, I could share another story, and you've just reminded me of another good story that I had. Actually, it was so we set up a new council on SpaceTicker, and part of what we did is we trained their regular hires on how to use the platform. And it was the best thing ever because the customer all of a sudden didn't have to worry about the admin side of things and just loved talking to the representative from the council about the
Mm,
community group and the direction of the community centre because the conversation shifted from, I need to pay my invoice, can I book for next week? I need to cancel this booking to, hey, we had like 20 people show up last week for this ballroom dancing class. And what are you planning on doing this thing? And so the conversation shifts as well, which is really amazing. It just, you're not bogged down on having to worry about the boring admin side. You're focusing on the really cool, the great stuff, the new goals, which is amazing as well.
yeah. I mean, of course, we work for SpaceCo and not just to plug it, but I mean,
Mhm.
that's the great thing about tools like SpaceCo, right? That allow you to get rid of all the admin tax, as you said.
Mm,
So you can just focus on like the fun and more vibrant things of your job, which is activation, placemaking, engagement, and all that stuff,
mm.
relationship building.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah, so awesome. But if nobody else has any other questions, this would probably be our shortest collab yet, which is not a bad thing.
Sorry,
Again,
guys.
no, it's not a bad thing. It's a good thing, Seriously, we give the people back the time to do the things they need to do. But again, if anybody should have any questions for Francine, I will, in your email after this recording, we'll be able to link you to how to contact her with regards to her session here. But if you have any other questions with regards to Space to Code, there will be another contact us button that you can access. But without further ado, just wanted to say a massive thank you to Francine again for your generosity, for your time, for your experience sharing all that and the insights we've gathered from today's session. It's been really, really great. And I hope those who are watching this recording afterwards and those who tuned in really got a lot out of it. And so might kick you off now, sis, but just wanted to say thank you again.
Thanks, Carms. Thanks everyone else for joining. It was lovely to see you.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so just before I finish, just want to let you know we are the Oprah of community venue resources out here in Australia, New Zealand, and from the looks of it, also expanding to the UK. Say less. But yeah, as the Oprah of Space to Co, everybody gets a resource. You get a resource, you get a resource, you get a resource. And guess what? It's free. Yeah, that's right. You heard me. So we do have an abundant array of resources available for you guys to download. Case studies, other webinar recordings of different topics, as Francine has also mentioned. Lots. This is our 30-second session, so there's lots and lots of topics from grant funding, how to increase revenue, how to move to an online booking system. We've had something similar to this, reactivating community venues. It's over here, and we've made a resource out of it. But yes, please explore. Please download them. They are free for you to use. And we would like for you to take advantage of them if it helps you in your work in our local communities. And then again, thank you all for the hard work you do in our local communities and the magic you create, the relationships you build. And thank you again for tuning in. And we hope you have a great week ahead. Bye, everybody.